This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast, and I am Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards.
I want to extend, first, before we start, I want to extend a congratulations to Nancy. She is the newest winner of the Lathrop Boy Memorial Scholarship. Congratulations, Nancy.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy and honored to get the award. And it's going to benefit the both of us because one, I plan on taking a course on how to do some more technical work for our podcast. Because one of the things that I'd like is after our 100th episode is I would love us to kind of expand some of our technology so we could reach more people, bring in some more sound bites and new platforms. So I'm excited. So the money will go towards learning that. So yay,
Yeah.
yay for
When
us.
and we were just saying before we came on that independent media is so important right now.
Yeah.
Not just our podcast, but just I think that's predominantly where I get a lot of my news these days is from the different podcasts I listen to, and with right-wing oligarchs who are in bed with Trump, buying up a lot of the corporate media and the FCC cracking down on corporate media who doesn't kowtow to Trump. It's really important that we have independent media. And the podcasts, even though the podcasts I listen to are independent, they all have these big entities behind them that could do these, really fancy technological things. So I'm really excited to see what this does for us.
Yeah, it would be nice. Like just a few things. First of all, another reason too is you handle a lot of the tech for what, and I kind of would like to be a little bit more a part of that so I can contribute in that way. I always feel like for me, like when I was making Instagram videos, like I hired a 20-year-old to like show me how to edit.
Well,
So,
what's funny? I was just telling somebody today, they would show me actually another software to use. It's called CapCut. It's kind of like
yeah, I've heard
TikTok.
of CapCut. You got to play
Yeah.
with it a little bit. So,
Yeah, you play with it a little bit. What I find frustrating though, and this is kind of funny, is that when I try and play around with those things, I have such stubby fingers. I have such stubby fingers. I can't do it easily because like I need a bigger screen to maybe try it. And I have stubby fingers, so I was like, oh shit, I can't like cut the clip right where I want to because my fingers are like, little they're
I won't do it.
like big Goliath fingers. Like so.
Yeah, I'm not much of an editor and it's not really my favorite thing, but it's important. But I noticed like when I did the PR when I worked at Madison High School, it would take me like all day to like make these Instagram like posts for them. And I said, I said to the principal, I said, why don't you just hire like a 20-year-old, like, get a um get an aide that's young, like if college student who needs some part-time work and some benefits, and they did, and and then all of a sudden the principal's like, "How come she can do this in 2 minutes and you take all day?" I said, "Because it's not in my language. This is something that's a lot more natural to young, the younger generation because they grew up on this.
Yeah.
I'm learning." I took a class a long time ago about how computers and stuff is more like an ESL course for us. Like it's not our first language, whereas for like the Gen Zers, it is. So, they just think it better than we do. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And well, just to explain to our viewers and our listeners about what the Lathrop Boy Memorial Scholarship is. It's a scholarship that's targeted primarily towards progressive and campaign activism. And so a lot of the people who are who's who in Staten Island progressive and democratic politics have won this award. And so Nancy is in really good company. And so we're really excited for that. I want to see if maybe I'll present the award to you. I want to present it. So
well,
I want to present it. So maybe they'll let me. I'll reach out to Cindy and
yeah,
maybe she'll let me.
that would be really cool. That would be nice.
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, I want to present it. So I'll see if I can do that. But
and thank you to the scholarship for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's going to benefit our podcast and who we reach, and that's important. So, And that's what we do when I think about activism and where I'm active these days, and that's got me more involved in what's going on. It's this podcast that has gotten me, like we now interact with a lot more different groups. And though I was very active years ago, this podcast has brought me back. So I'm glad we're doing it.
Me too. And, one of the things I'm really happy about as well is that this year, and I post about this on our Instagram page, and we've mentioned it in previous episodes, is that the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast is a sponsor of this year's No Kings March. And that is taking place on Saturday, March 28th. Last March was in October, and we had upwards of 2,000 people show up on Staten Island, which everybody writes off as MAGA. And so we're hoping that we surpass that number. We're hoping that we get more people this time. And the opposition within the last year has really been mobilized, in a way that I've not seen on Staten Island in a very long time. And so I'm hoping that that translates into this march. And we're also partnering with the Staten Island Action Coalition. We're partnering with the Young Dems on this. And the North Shore Dems as well. So there are a lot of grassroots groups, but there are also groups within the Democratic Party apparatus who are also a part of this as well.
So, yes, I'm very happy to be a part of this rally, and I think there's going to be a bigger turnout because, every single day, the Trump administration and our local congressional leader gives us more reasons why we need to come out into the streets and voice our opposition to what's going on. I mean, with, what's going on with Iran, how it's affecting gas prices with tariffs, how that's affecting prices when Trump opens his mouth, and today's comment with the Prime Minister of Japan about Pearl Harbor was embarrassing. The fact that our allies aren't even supporting him in this war, and then of course one thing that I'm really upset about is what's happening in Cuba. Um, and, this week, Cuba, just the whole power grid went out because they don't have energy because we're blocking it. And then Trump makes that comment like, well, I have the honor of taking Cuba, whatever I want to do with it. Like, who are you? Who are you? This is
Yeah. Well, and I think,
gross.
and we'll get to this a little bit later. And, I don't know if this necessarily applies to hardcore MAGA voters. I don't think so. I think this is more the ones on the margin that he won in 2024. But a lot of people who did vote for Trump are now having buyer's remorse, and I'm hoping that those people do join us on March 28th at this rally if they feel inclined to do so. I was listening to The Bulwark today, and they were interviewing James Tallarico, who won the Senate Texas primary on the Democratic side a few weeks ago. And he said, it's tempting to greet these people like, well, you fucking idiot, what'd you think would happen? Like, but we have to greet them with an open hand and not a closed fist. And so
Yeah,
that's what I think should happen. And I hope this rally is an opportunity for us to maybe bring some of those people along with us.
and then also, bring them to the ballot box and bring them to vote. And then the other thing that we need to also make aware is the SAVE Act in regards to voting, which our Congresswoman is supporting. And when we see, I just posted a story on Instagram where someone made a little comical reference to just the difficulties of what's going to happen if this act goes through, obtaining your information if you to register to vote. But interestingly enough, if somebody's going to fight, being called like men who are automatically registered for the selective services, they don't need a passport and they don't need the type of documentation to go and fight, but they'll need it to go and vote, which is such
Yeah.
hypocritical. So.
Oh, absolutely. And as I've been saying about the SAVE Act, Nicole Malliotakis, of course, misrepresents and lies about what it is, just like she lies about everything. But this is a poll tax. There is nothing,
Yeah.
there's no other way to view it as simply a poll tax. A passport, the average passport is over $200. uh, and it takes weeks to process. And
160, but that doesn't count, what you spend on getting a passport photo and,
yeah. And
trying to
so
make,
it's a poll tax.
it,
It's absolutely a poll tax. Uh and it's absolutely a way to disenfranchise groups of voters who they know will not vote for them, namely women. Women who many of whom, like my own mother, does not have the same last name that she did on her birth certificate, and because she's married. And so she would be disenfranchised. She would be not included. Now, thankfully, this is still the 60 vote rule is in the Senate still applies to break a filibuster, and they do not have that. And John Thune acknowledged they will not break that filibuster threshold. And the option that was contemplated for a while was giving uh, making it a talking filibuster. So,
yes.
now a filibuster, a senator just has to call it in and that's it. But this is what they would have senators do is they would have these marathon talking sessions. And what I said on the last episode is if John Thune wants to give Democrats the mic to talk about this for weeks on end, okay.
Why it's a bad
Yeah.
bill.
Oh,
Because
okay.
a lot of people, hold on. A lot of people don't see it, like they just don't understand because Nicole Malliotakis is turning around and saying this is about voter integrity, this is about making sure that there's no fraud. Um, and when we look in regards to the amount of fraud that actually happens, it's a minor amount and it's amount that's not
It's
affecting
oh,
elections.
it's
Right.
minuscule at best. I mean, it's minuscule at best, and actually, even the most prolific instances of voter fraud occur on the Republican side. There was a man in 2020 who voted on behalf of his wife who had disappeared for Trump, and then he was arrested in suspicion about his wife's disappearance. And so this happens every accusation that these people make is a confession. And
Yeah.
Nicole Malliotakis complaining about integrity and fraud. This is somebody who has no integrity and is a fraud on every level. And so she is not to be trusted at all. She is a liar.
Well,
And we have strong candidates who are willing to, once they get past this primary process, are going to take her on and will defeat her.
yeah.
And so she is a liar, she is a fraud. Don't believe a word she says about this or anything. And always question her. I said today, I commented on her thing. I hope because she comments and responds sometimes. I hope she would have to me. I said, stop lying to your constituents about DHS funding. She is going around saying that if you experience longer lines at the airport because of a TSA delay or shutdown, that it's Democrats' fault. Bullshit. Democrats offered to fund the TSA
Yes.
and other parts of DHS except ICE and border uh, control unless
Because
there's
that's where they have the issue. That's where the conflict is that
unless
Democrats are looking to kind of rein in on some of the lawlessness of DHS. So that's where the disagreement is. They don't want to do that. So they're offering this in regards to, and I saw online a congressman confront Senator
Cornyn.
Cornyn, Senator Cornyn, and Senator Cornyn got out of his car to bring hamburgers to TSA workers because, they can't feed themselves. And he blamed the congressman because he said Democrats won't vote for DHS. Um, and so therefore TSA workers, they won't vote for this bill. And the congressman said, no, that's not true. We don't want to fund DHS, but we would like to fund TSA. So we're offering this amendment. And he wouldn't, the senator, said no to that. So he said it like on camera. So when they talk about it, they're
Well,
lying.
and John Cornyn, has every reason to lie. By the way, John Cornyn also is really pushing the SAVE Act because Ken Paxton, his primary opponent, who is an ultra-right criminal adulterer, MAGA, a guy just molded in a MAGA factory and just basically put out there. Uh, that's his right-wing opponent, and he is basically saying, "Well, I won't." And Cornyn and Paxton are going to a runoff later on. They had their primary a few weeks ago, and Cornyn was slightly ahead. And Paxton said basically, okay, well, I will drop out only if the Senate passes the SAVE Act, which is not going to happen. which
Yeah.
is, which is not going to happen. And so Cornyn is, doing everything but, giving Donald Trump public fellatio to get his endorsement. And so basically, and so again, liar, self-interested. We should not take anything these people say at face value, and we should challenge everything that they say about DHS. And, Nicole
That's why this
Malley,
podcast is important.
yeah, and Nicole Malliotakis, you are full of shit. We all knew that. You are so full of shit when you go out there and you talk about Democrats not funding TSA. You know that's a lie. Everybody knows that's a lie. It's documented. It's on the record. Democrats said we will not fund ICE nor border control without significant reforms. Those are the conditions. Those are the conditions. And if you're and she's going on about Democrats leaving us unsafe because of that. Well, Kash Patel gutted counterterrorism in the FBI. There are whole sections of our intelligence agencies that have been decimated by her fearless leader. And so she doesn't give a shit about national security because if she did, she would call them out for that. She just wants to score political points. She wants to which is what she's done her entire public life. Oh, look, there's a problem, there's a problem. But meanwhile, here's me and my Chihuahua not doing anything about it. And so I think, and she's gotten away with that for 15 years. And I think now is the time that we say enough. We say
Well,
enough.
I think, she has this advantage of being the incumbent that people seem to just take her word because she's, the person in office. But you're absolutely right. People really need to show Staten Island what she really does support and what's really in that act and how it's going to impact everyday voters. Aside from, I know that a lot of people on Staten Island are concerned about fraud, but this isn't about fraud. Um, curtailing who can actually vote. Legitimate voters. I'm not talking about illegal voters. We're talking about people who have the right citizens to vote. And it's going to impact who can vote and who can't vote. And Trump said himself aloud, he said, if Republicans want to keep power, they have to, you know, pass this act.
Well, and actually, interestingly enough, the Heritage Foundation, I don't remember who specifically it was in the Heritage Foundation, but the Heritage Foundation, which is the group, right-wing group, by the way, and it is the group that's also behind Project 2025. They have put out a report that said the SAVE Act would give too much power to the federal government over elections and would create a nightmare scenario for local elections boards. This is the right-wing group that crafted Project 2025. They are saying that. And so these people are so nihilistic, they don't believe in anything. I mean, they've been saying for years how much they want states to have control of elections. Anytime there's been interventions to try and protect people's voting rights and protect people's right to vote through pre-clearance at the Justice Department, they strike it down, or they say that we're federalizing elections, or that we're trying to take control away from the states. This SAVE Act will take away control from the states, and it will give the federal government power over elections that they were never, ever intended to have. They don't believe in a single thing. So when they say that they want states' rights and when they say that states should have control of elections, well, that's only when it works for them. That's only
Mhm.
when it works for them. That's all they care about is power for its own sake and owning the libs. That's all they care about.
Owning the libs. It just makes me laugh. Just, I, you know, I'm as someone who flies a lot, and who will be at TSA very soon, at the airport. These poor people are going to work and or can't get to work, because of this bullshit. Um, you know, uh, and someone made an interesting point in regards to the tax that you are charged when you buy an airline ticket, for fees for the airport. There's money there that people are buying tickets. There is money that is being, designated towards airport security and stuff. There is money that we can pay our TSA workers. So why don't we? And if Republicans were smart, they would pass that act because that makes them look good.
Well,
It,
they would, and this is, and it's just simply for them, but they want a fully funded ICE. And by the way, ICE was funded by that fucking atrocity bill that they passed last summer, which cut health care in the form of Medicaid and other programs, which Nicole Malliotakis voted for.
yes.
ICE they're not lacking for money. ICE is the most well-funded federal law enforcement agency in the entire federal government, more than the FBI, more than the CIA, more than most local police departments. They are not lacking for money. We just don't want, and they want them to be funded up the wazoo because they want them not to control undocumented and illegal immigration. They want them as a paramilitary force who will do Trump's will and who will go to polling places in November to scare and intimidate voters because they want a fascistic police state. That's really what they want. And that's what this is. This is a paramilitary force, and Democrats do not break ranks to fund this agency. Do not break ranks. And I don't give a fuck what John Fetterman says. His brain is cooked from a stroke. And so, we should watch who we support in future elections because this guy has turned out to be just such a fucking turncoat. And, but anyway, don't break ranks. Stick to your guns on this. Do not fund this agency. It is a paramilitary force. It is the brown shirts. It is the Gestapo. Don't fund them at all.
Yeah, I mean, on a good news front, we had a local teenager who was detained by ICE and who spent 10 months there, um, and has finally come home today. He was released today, and he a student from the Bronx, uh, and finally 10 months was. I lost you here. Do you see me? Oh, there we
I
are.
see. Yeah.
Um, and this is the indication of how we need to kind of give them some form of accountability is that they're detaining the wrong people. And, you have people that are stuck in detention centers for months. For what reason? For what reason? They're following protocol. They're doing what they need to do. Um, and there is no accountability. What is so wrong with getting a warrant? What is so wrong with identifying who you are as an officer?
Well, that's the
Other po
constitutional process. That is the constitutional process. That is what we used to call the rule of law.
When they talk about the fact that ICE, as far as for their protection, what about police officers? Police officers arrest people with a name on their badge. Like, what's the difference? I don't understand the difference. Not everything is an undercover job. Like, I know like sometimes, with CIA and certain operations, they can't expose who they are, but this is not that. So why can't they identify who they are? Um, and unless they're doing something wrong.
Well, they're doing violent things. They're shooting Americans in the face. They are detaining people who are no threat to the security of this country at all. And they are terrorizing cities like Minneapolis who oppose the Trump administration. That's really what this is about. That's what I was saying before. This is really just a paramilitary goon squad that is there to do Donald Trump's bidding. That is it. This,
Well, we have, one of the things we want to talk about today was what was Mullen. had the hearings in regards
That,
to the new
that fucking guy.
DHS.
That fucking guy. I mean, he's just, he's just such a, and, I know
Started
Democrats.
like a bar fight in a congressional hearing. Like,
Oh, he did. And the guy, well, interestingly, that was with Sean O'Brien, the leader of the Teamsters, and the guy was sitting behind him. He was like, "Oh, we made up." It was like, he's like, "We made up." But this guy is just such a violent yokel, and just really and borderline illiterate. My God, this misspellings that come out of his social media posts and his press releases. I mean, Oklahoma is not 50th in education for nothing. Let's just put it that way. And so, and I know Democrats are often, chided because we sort of come across as though we're looking down on people like that. But I think in this case, you're in a very important job. You should, you
or,
should
or
have,
hire an
yeah,
intern who does spell check.
yeah. And, you're in a very important job. You're leading people, and I often don't say this, but Rand Paul was leading the committee hearing, and I absolutely agreed with everything he said, because he said, you are somebody who believes that violence ought to solve political problems. Do you see why that's a problem when you are leading people in law enforcement with weapons? And that's going to be your approach to everything, because him and Rand Paul had some personal back and forths, and he said that when Rand Paul was assaulted that he deserved it and all kinds of bullshit. But this guy is just, my God, Kristi Noem is going to look like Margaret Thatcher next to him.
Well, um, well, he'll get confirmed because, our favorite Democrat in the Senate is going to vote for him.
Oh,
Um,
John Fetterman. I know I touched
is
upon it
someone going to
before.
primary him? Is
I
somebody going
hope so. I hope so. Listen, there are really, there are really impressive Democrats in Pennsylvania. You should absolutely primary him. Connor Lamb was his last primary opponent in 22. You should absolutely do it again because you tried to warn people and we didn't listen. And Malcolm Kenyatta is another one. He's a DNC vice chair. He's a state rep in Pennsylvania. Also, a really good option. Madeline Dean, another really good option, Congresswoman from Pennsylvania. So, all of those people and maybe more should think about entering the race and jumping in. He had a stroke, and all of a sudden he went MAGA. It took literal brain damage to be MAGA. And
That
not,
was the complications from this, from what happened to him, is
yeah.
he turned more right wing. At first, he was like, I don't have to, he doesn't necessarily have to beat to the same drum, but some of these things that he's voting for are ridiculous. And um,
Okay. Well, part of the reason it's so impossible for Senate Democrats to hold the line on, when we shut down the government over principled stands on things like Obamacare or ICE or whenever, is because John Fetterman fucking breaks ranks.
yeah,
Because of his cooked brain is telling him that he should break ranks. Either resign or switch fucking parties. Because
well,
we
wasn't there
want,
someone who switched, went independent from California? Uh,
yes,
I
yeah.
heard that
Somebody in the House, though.
on POTUS Radio today. Yes, someone in the House. And he's a Republican who went independent and who's still going to caucus with the Republicans, but might caucus next year with the Democrats. But you're starting to see more and more people become independent. I'm wondering if this is I remember years ago, I was part of a political platform to form a third party called the 21st Century Party. It never panned out, but there was some serious, like we had a convention in Chicago and we made a platform. Dolores Huerta was going to be the party leader. And then we couldn't decide on certain key issues on who we would support. As a third party? Would we just support only our candidates, or would we be someone who would support Democrats? So it didn't vote. But maybe it's a time to think about, you know, a
Well, I
new
think
party or
Well, I
or
think
independent.
Fetterman. I
Independent.
think well, listen. I think in this case with Fetterman, I think the party is going to resolve it. I think there's going to be a ton of primary challengers if he even decides to run for re-election. Let's be honest, his brain is cooked. He may not, but and so I think the party will absolutely handle that. And the only Democrat that enrages me almost as much as Fetterman is Tom Suozzi. Oh my God, that
Yeah.
guy. That fucking guy. He votes to fund ICE. If he's constipated that day, he blames trans people. He's just the fucking worst. He said when he was primarying Kathy Hochul a few years ago that Ron DeSantis's "Don't Say Gay" bill made sense. Like these fucking people. I know we have to have a big tent party, but if you're right wing, just say it. You're right wing. You're not a Democrat. You're not a Democrat. And so just he's his brain is cooked. He's got to go. And he has to just, he has to take there needs to be an active primary and not only is he MAGA now all of a sudden, John Fetterman, but he's also a shill for the Israeli government. Anything they want, he gives them.
Mhm.
And so that is really, and including a war that should not be happening right now. I don't want to see another American soldier die for a war for another country. I
There
don't.
was a plane that was shot down today. But believe the pilot was able to jump out, parachute out, but and I think my is a is alive, I think is okay. But but it was a combat mission. So the question was, how did Iran get? It was a stealth bomber. How did Iran get that information? It was supposed to be under the radar. So things are heating up in Iran. They're bombing. Israel bombed a prominent oil field in Iran. Gas is starting to go up. The market's down. Um, Pete, Hegseth asked for like $200 billion. He's, for
So
the
he could buy
war.
more, so he could buy more crab legs and everything else that the audit said he was spending money on, that pencil dick geek.
So yeah, well, it's becoming more and more serious, and and they can't give a clear reason for why they're in it in the first place, and our allies are backing away.
Why
Um,
shouldn't they? Why
and
shouldn't they? I
and
mean,
they also need to call Trump on certain things he says in regards to how we go and help. And you know, the, um, officially for NATO to join, um, there has to be a discussion. He never consulted with them, um, and NATO did help us when we entered Afghanistan. So the only country that actually sought assistance during a confrontation was the United States. And the United States did get help from its NATO allies. So Trump is lying once again. And I wish a NATO leader would say something aloud, saying, you're telling us how we're not helping you out. When we did help you out. You've gone about it the wrong way. You spent quite a bit of time dissing your allies, and then not even consulting on them when you're making this decision. And now you want us to come in and send ships? Like fuck you,
yeah,
you
well,
know?
exactly. He spent the last year shitting all over them.
Yeah.
He's tariffed them to pieces in some cases. And he was going to invade them a month ago. He was going to go into Greenland and fight with NATO. So no wonder they're saying go fuck yourself. No wonder they are not uh, jumping to help him. Why should they? Why should they? What reason has he given our allies? Number one, for why we're even in this war to begin with, but number two, that he is a good faith actor. He is not. And
But he
so,
also hasn't gone about it in accordance to the NATO agreement. So he can't it's like I feel like Donald Trump grabs a board game and he asks everybody to play, but he makes the rules up as opposed to going to the rules of the board game. And then he gets pissed off when nobody wants to play with him or nobody.
well, it's just a weird combination of the board game Monopoly, and then you have Pencil Dick Pete Hegseth over there, using the military like it's Call of Duty, like a video game. And it's a really serious situation. That was part of, one of my part of my lore, my political origin story is, why I decided to get more involved in politics as a teenager. I went to, I went to NYU on the weekends to go to a law program for high school students. And I remember there was there was a protest at Washington Square Park against the Iraq War. And, I went there and, I found common cause with those people. And so that was my lore, my origin story, my political origin story. And so I don't want to see American troops die for an unknown cause. What are we doing there? Why are we even, they've given us 50 different fucking explanations. They've been saying for 40 years that Iran has a nuke that has not materialized. We actually did have an agreement with Iran under the Obama administration that actually called for any time, any place inspections that did not involve a single troop on the ground, and that was ripped up by Donald Trump against the advice of his own Secretary of State at the time, Rex Tillerson. And so this is just mind-boggling to me, and it's increasing people's costs. The Strait of Hormuz is still impassable. Nobody can get through it. And that's where a fifth of the world's oil comes from. So, of course,
Prices are
prices
going
are going
up.
to go up. Yeah.
And uh, the Trump, says that there's a real threat when a member of his cabinet just resigned because they said that's not true. Um, it's not, there was no real threat. And then also, what's her name? I see.
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard. Yes, thank you. You're the one who knows the names. I'm the one who can't remember them.
Well,
But
there's a lot of well, there's like a big, cast of characters who could, it's hard. It's not easy.
they just had a hearing with her where they were asking her questions about her responsibility, being part of the intelligence committee. And she had said, that last year that Iran did, that their nuclear thing was obliterated and that there was no threat and that they were not looking to rebuild. So how is that, the tune changed? And she said, she couldn't answer it. And she was like, it's up to the president to decide that. And they're like, no, but your job being,
Well, why
head.
the fuck are you there then? Like
Yeah,
you're supposed to advise the president on the threats. And so why are you there? Just let him fucking do it. And Tulsi Gabbard is another one. She's another one of these people who is so nihilistic. She doesn't believe in anything. She was for years anti-interventionist, no wars. She went MAGA because Trump was claimed to be the candidate of peace and not wanting to engage in wars. And, now that Trump is putting the military everywhere, Venezuela, Iran, potentially Cuba, potentially Greenland, she is silent. She doesn't give a shit about anything but her own ambition. So
hmm
again, nihilistic, these people don't believe in anything. Nothing. And so she is somebody again who we should not believe at all, because she only cares about her ambition. And, she's too busy farting around in Fulton County looking for ballots from an election that happened 6 years ago.
Right. And that also been proven that, no, there was nothing wrong going on there as well. So
Right.
not to
Yeah.
mention using taxpayer money to once again look at the scenario again. And
Yeah. It's not
Nicole,
enough.
and let's go back to Nicole. We can blame her for that too, because she also voted, not to certify the election. So she
Yeah.
also,
Well, when she's complaining about Democrats wanting to redistrict her seat, sweetie, the first vote you took was to decertify the election in two states. You were prepared to throw out the votes of millions of people in two states, all because, you were told to do so by Orange Hitler.
yeah.
And so miss me with that bullshit about redistricting and all that stuff. And we're going to beat you anyway, whether the lines are here or there or wherever. We're going to beat you anyway.
Which will lead us to our next topic, which is we have two. Troy McGee has dropped out of the
Yeah.
race. And
And
I want to personally say something to Troy McGee as a thank you for stepping in early and putting in the fight and, um, you know,
well,
going in to run the race. He was
he
the
was
first one.
yeah, he was an early entrant to the race, and I really respect Troy McGee for being out there and for weathering, uncertain territory because we were unsure what was going to happen with the lines and how that was going to affect the campaign. And I really respect him for being out there. My understanding is that he's endorsed Allison Ziogas. And there are those. She is one of the two candidates that are now in the race. There's Allison Ziogas.
The county committee endorsed her.
County endorsed her. She is a union organizer, an electrician.
Hmm.
And so she is going to be the county endorsed candidate, but there is still going to be a primary on June 23rd. And the second candidate in the race is Michael DeSillis. And Michael DeSillis has been also been on this podcast
Right,
before. He was on this podcast when they were holding the town halls last year, and
right.
he was the organizer of that. And so
Um,
and I went actually to his opening a few days ago. And just to be clear, we're not endorsing anybody publicly on this podcast because we want to just see how the primary plays out. And I just was just going for the vibes and to see like what the energy was like and who was there and whether I could talk to him and just hopefully get him on the podcast. And we are in talks to do that with both him and Allison's campaign. And so he was quite impressive in his opening. He has a uniquely Staten Island and South Brooklyn story. He has done everything under the sun. He's an attorney, a teacher, a
Police
police
officer.
officer, an EMT. Um, and he
Oh
was
wait, no, yeah, is he ENT, not police, but
no,
part of.
he was a police officer too. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so he's got an expansive and fairly broad resume. He's also been a staffer in the state legislature. So he is somebody who has also been out there and doing the work. And um, my understanding, and I heard from multiple sources that there were robocalls going around saying that Michael DeSillis had dropped out when he is not. And so.
I didn't get anything.
No, but I had heard that from a number of different people, and I want to say to whoever's doing that, stop. Like, stop lying to people. If you really want whoever your candidate is to win, do it on the merits. Do it on what they are proposing and how they would first defeat Nicole, how they would make Staten Island better, and how they would keep the seat for more than one cycle.
Well,
And
I want to win. I want to
yeah,
win. I
me
want to
too.
defeat Nicole. So, Allison or Mike, whoever is the better candidate, will get that in the primary. And
Yes.
I'm hoping both of them can get their messages out as to why. And then also their messages also excite more people to come out and vote, and also not vote for Nicole and vote for the Democratic, whoever the primary is. I wish the county would endorse after the primary.
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of doing that. I don't quite understand the reasoning behind that. Do you?
No, I had heard though about this particular candidate. I don't know if it's true, but I had heard from several sources that county was fearing the loss of union support. And so she has a fairly extensive union background, and her union has been producing a lot of the videos that we've seen on
They're
her
good.
social
They're very
media.
good videos.
They
I
are.
I think they're I was like I was impressed, and I was like made me feel in I was impressed with, what
Yeah.
they were, but I don't know her personally, so I'm looking forward to having her on and for
Yeah.
her to talk about what her message is and how she's going to defeat Nicole, and also I'm looking forward to seeing Mike come on as well and talk about how he's planning on defeating, because that's what we need to do. We just don't need a candidate to put in the slot. We need a momentum, and we need someone who can, get rid of her.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that Mike talked about is that the threat to democracy that these people pose, Nicole Malliotakis, Donald Trump, the Republicans, the oligarchs, those are inextricably linked from economic issues. And I think that that's a really important message. And I think I've heard Ro Khanna coin the term, but I think John Ossoff in Georgia has been using it really effectively, and he's using it effectively, and he's also very pretty to look at. But and so they've both coined the term the Epstein class. So the people who are most benefited by this administration by being shielded from any accountability for anything. I mean, if you think about Nicole Malliotakis won't even say Ghislaine Maxwell shouldn't get a pardon. Nicole Malliotakis lines her pockets with insider trading. Uh, and Nicole Malliotakis does what's best for Nicole Malliotakis. She doesn't do what's best for her constituents.
She has a pre-programmed town hall. It's not even a town hall. She has a selective group of people who she doesn't meet with her constituents. She doesn't meet like I think if she came outside of her office when on Malliotakis Mondays and she could have I think if she wants to, a hearty debate with the people across the street. Um,
She only goes to Newsmax and One America Network and Fox and people who will fluff up her pillows.
she goes on CNN too. I mean,
Well,
she
CNN's
in New
being,
York One, she's
yeah,
but they
see,
don't ask her. And then I heard her on POTUS, and I was really pissed off because they didn't ask her hard questions. They were very fluffed questions, and so she probably has them what they're going to ask her beforehand.
yeah, well, she goes to, and CNN is being taken over by David Ellison pretty soon, and so I think that's going to be basically Fox News,
Okay.
and so I think that's basically going to be Fox News, and so it's not surprising that she would go there because it's under those conditions, it's definitely a more friendlier environment, which I think would leads us back to Trump voters themselves surprisingly have basically been expressing buyer's remorse much more than they ever have, at least publicly. I've seen a few different instances of Trump voters emphatically saying that they regret their vote.
Well,
And
the video you sent me of that woman
yeah.
going, and
Well, I'm going to show it right now. So, and there was another one that I
it
actually,
made it was on the national news. It was on, I saw it on The View.
yeah, well, this one actually to me was the more significant one. I saw this one last week. I'm going to play it for our listeners. I just want to make sure the volume is good. 190 or 290 somewhere. It's 550 a gallon. I miss my Uncle Joe. I was balling then. Now I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even show you $5 in my pocket. Balling. He was balling then. And then there's the one that I sent you.
Right.
I posted it on Facebook, so I'm going on my Facebook right now. So for the folks who are watching on YouTube, you get a sense of my Facebook page.
Is that a blue wave? There
It
it
is.
is.
There it is. Here she is. What would it be?
It's like my friend
You're a
Jan.
work. You could say something to President Trump and he was going to hear you right now. What would it be? You're a worthless pile of. And you voted for him how many times? 3 times. That was my bad. Apparently, I'm an idiot.
Inject that into my veins. That's just too funny.
Oh,
But, besides all of that,
oh,
so
wait, oh,
there we
there.
are. There we are. So, what did you think of those statements? The first guy actually, I think, was, quite sincerely, the lady was angry and funny and all that, but the first guy, I think, was genuinely like, disappointed, it seemed.
Well, I haven't heard a lot of. I mean, I saw that the video of the woman after you said, and then I also saw it on a national platform. But I haven't seen a lot of buyer's remorse videos. Um, but there is a lot for a lot of people who were in the center who were talking about they naturally gave Donald Trump this kind of pass because he's a businessman, so he would fix the economy. And if we look at the economy now, it's not doing well. It's not um prices are up. Prices are up in the supermarket. They're up in with gas, of course. Health insurance premiums for a lot of people have gone through the roof. Interest rates are still high. Uh, I know Trump was trying to lower that, but he's not been successful at lowering interest rates um, in regards to tariffs. So things are just more expensive. The market is not doing great. I know that the Department of Justice said, "Oh, it's, at an all-time high." But market's been down. I'm looking at my own little personal account and it's down. Um, and I'm concerned. I'm wondering if I should move some things around because, we're in a war. He's asking for more and more money. So financially, where is Trump doing well? What is he doing well? And
Well, well, I would just ask, well, just in totality, I would just ask, most of the time when you heard about people who voted for Trump in 2024, you heard about a few things. You heard about lower prices, gas prices, grocery prices, no new wars, and a full release of the Epstein files. How's that
I
going?
didn't even bring that up.
How's that going? On all of those fronts, they have failed and they have made, not just failed, but they have made all of those things worse. All of the things are much more expensive. The people who are most guilty of crimes that took place in the Epstein files are being shielded by this administration. And so, you know, the right-wing bro podcasters, who really didn't have political loyalty before this, what do you say now? I know Andrew Schultz has expressed a lot of remorse and regret. But still, a part of me is like, I know Tallarico said, and I agree generally that we should greet them with an open hand rather than a closed fist. But part of me is like, well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? He was not subtle. He was not subtle about a lot of this stuff. And so, uh, like, it's amazing to me. He's the only politician, he's the only candidate where he says what he's going to do and people don't believe it. Like,
Yeah.
and people don't believe him.
He also says things that the Democrats are doing when actually it's him who's really doing it, which
Well, yeah.
I find interesting.
Well,
So,
the whole QAnon lore was, Democratic pedophiles are abusing children and ritually sacrificing them and doing all kinds of horrible things. Meanwhile, the call is coming from inside the house.
yeah, the call is coming from inside the house.
It's coming from inside the house and from one of my favorite horror movies, Black Christmas.
Well, I hope my concern is this. Sure, there could be buyer's remorse, but are buyers going to stay home or are they going to go out and vote for the Democrats? And so the Democrats have to, you know, be very good at, saying, come
I
out
would
and vote.
Well, I would also say, I said when I posted the video of the woman on my Facebook online, I said that, and I think also the first guy that we saw, I think those, if we can get those things and kind of spice them together, that should be in every House Democrats campaign ad. That should be in every House Democrats campaign ad. The people, who were sold a bill of goods, now things are more expensive. They're no more transparent. We're in another seemingly endless conflict with Iran that he is just sort of freewheeling, and it seems like the explanation for it seems to change by the second. And
I would
so
slightly disagree, slightly, meaning I think that with those sound bites, Democrats have to talk about their plan. What are
well,
they
exactly.
planning on doing?
Well,
Because
it's
my concern is that like what they did with Hillary is they stayed home. They didn't go out and vote. And those who didn't like Trump stayed home and didn't vote for Hillary. So therefore, she lost. So I'm hoping that with the congressional, they come out and vote. So like with our congressional candidate, if you don't like, I see a lot of people um, with Nicole like condemning her, and it's not just the people I know. It's like there's other voters who are they don't like what she's doing. Are they going to come out and vote, or are they going to stay home?
Yeah.
Because
Well, I
like, are
think
they excited about I can vote for a Democrat?
Yeah, well, I also think the Democrats have to remind people, and I know the stuff around Biden running for re-election and ultimately what happened in the 2024 election has clouded a lot of the actual good things about the Biden administration. I mean, where the Biden administration handed Donald Trump a very strong economy that he has now squandered. And the Biden administration, the last year of his administration, there were 2 million jobs gained. This first year of Donald Trump, there's 200,000 jobs lost in that first.
Yeah.
And so I think hearkening back to when, the economy was still fragile, still had its issues, but on the right path to a recovery, especially after the pandemic, I think it would be a winning message for Democrats, not necessarily with Biden himself, but just reminding people that we were on a solid trajectory, and were things too expensive? Absolutely. Were there still issues? Absolutely. Were things perfect? No, but we were still on a solid trajectory and they handed Donald Trump an excellent economy that he has squandered, and Republicans do that over and over and over again. 1929, Herbert Hoover fucks the economy really bad with his response to the Great Depression. Franklin Roosevelt fixes it. Uh,
It took
the
him a couple of years, but he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Franklin Roosevelt fixes it. George Bush fucks the economy in 2008 with deregulation, and
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama comes in, fixes it, hands Donald Trump an excellent economy, which he totally destroys by the end of his term.
In which Donald Trump turns around and says the economy was bad. And and nobody calls him on it.
He wants to count every year of his first term up except 2020 because of COVID, which would not have happened if not for his ineptitude. Let's just make that
Well,
clear.
and that's the thing too, if he wants to blame COVID, like COVID threw a monkey wrench in a lot of things. And so with Biden, with the stimulus checks, it got the economy going. Now, I think there were some problems with those stimulus checks. One of them was I never got one. But no, in other words, but I didn't need a stimulus check because I was getting a paycheck, so I really wasn't. But I heard people who were getting paychecks got stimulus checks.
Yeah.
So, um, in that regard, but still, it was because of COVID. So I think, Biden did a good job with handling COVID. So if Trump can lean on that crutch, so can Biden.
Oh, absolutely. And so, so can the Democrats. The Democrats can, again, remind people, the guy said, I miss my Uncle Joe. I was bowling back then. And so, again, sleepy, maybe older, had a stutter, but, was mostly doing the right thing. And
Yeah.
and I said when I posted online, I posted the net job gain during last year of Biden versus the job loss first year of Trump. I said, the old guy with the stutter and the lady with that laugh you didn't like are looking really good right now, I bet.
Yeah. Well, um, we just need to get people out to the polls, and I think the two candidates we have for Staten Island and the Democrats are very good. And
They're very strong. They're very strong in their own ways. The one thing I would say though, I've heard a lot of people around Allison saying, that she should avoid the divisive national issues. And I disagree with that. I think you have to run into those head on, especially because and they say, oh, kitchen table issues. Kitchen table issues are inextricable from a lot of the national things that are happening. How could you not call out Donald Trump for entering a war that is going to increase people's gas prices and everything else? Because when fuel goes up, so does everything. Because, how do you think your food is going to get to the supermarket? They have to bring it there somehow. And so, uh, how could you not say that Donald Trump's tariffs have made things more expensive? How could you not run on the ACA premiums going up and impacting people? And so, how could you not run on Nicole Malliotakis voting to increase people's healthcare costs with that atrocious bill that she voted for last summer? And so I think this idea of milk toast, oh, just don't get into the divisive national issues, I think that is totally wrong. I think that you have to confront those things directly.
yeah, I thought her campaign ad was very good, but some of the things she talked about, I'm like, what? those aren't the hot issues. Those aren't, what are you going to do about the issues that we're complaining about right now? Like,
Yeah, well, they're inextricable, and I hope to talk to her and get some clarity on those things. And so hopefully, when she comes on and we have our conversation, she responds to a lot of those questions.
yeah, we do. So I'm looking forward to speaking with both of them.
Yeah.
Uh, and then our primary is in June, right? June 20.
June 23rd, yes.
Okay.
And so that's the primary here in New York. We have a few seats on Staten Island that have active primaries, the congressional, as well as
State
the
Senate.
state Senate district for our friend Jessica Scarcella Stanton. She's facing a challenger, Omar Mohammed. And so those are the two seats that I know of on Staten Island that have an active primary. Although other seats, and we're hoping that the other candidates come on too. There's an opponent for Assemblyman Michael Tunesis, and then there's an opponent for State Senator Andrew Lanza, Alexis Rodriguez. And so I'm hoping that we get all of them on at some point to talk about their campaigns. Andrew Lanza has not had an opponent in eons, and he should.
Yeah, he should after that showing he had at the down on the South Shore for the shelter that was being built. Someone just started to follow me that's running. Hold on one second. I just saw it. No, that's not it. Alexis, yeah.
Oh,
Alexis
cool.
Rodriguez.
Yeah.
She's New York State Senate candidate, District 24. Love to have her on and
Yeah, absolutely.
reach out to her. I will.
Absolutely. And I gave her our business card at the St. Patty's Day parade, so she knows we're around. And, I text with her every so often. So I'm hoping that she's able to come on. Right now, it's kind of a busy time for candidates because they're trying to get on the ballot. They're all doing petitions up until the end of March. And so, on that note, do you have anything else, Nance?
Uh, no, it just one more no plea for Cuba. All their lights, the grids went out this week because of what the United States is doing, and Donald Trump's comment on how he could, oh, I have the honor of taking Cuba if I want. I don't know, maybe I'll set it free. What what is it like a caged bird or something? Like he's talking about Cuba like it's like a pet that, I don't know, maybe I'll let it go. I have the honor. The honor?
Well, maybe he'll forget about it when his gaudy ballroom is going up, or somebody brings him a trinket like Tim Cook did a few months ago. So,
Well,
it
there's a
doesn't take much.
flotilla going,
Yeah.
there's a flotilla going to help, but the Cuban people, they are not the enemy. They are not the enemy. The government is not our enemy. It's the enemy of a certain group of people in the United States, but they just want to live their lives. And
Well,
they have a right to,
actually, when Barack Obama was when he was president, he was attempting to normalize relations with Cuba. He said, "I do not want the United States fighting a battle from 50 years ago."
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when I was there a few years ago, it was under the Biden administration, but they still held Trump's not tariffs.
The
They were still
embargoes, the
the
embargoes.
embargo. But every word out of a Cuban's mouth when I was over there was when Obama was president. When Obama was president, because things were starting to move. First of all, tourism, more Americans were going to visit. So because of that, they were building more hotels, which was putting more money in people's pockets, and Cubans, not the government, Cubans. Um, and so it was benefiting the United States. We went to visit a baseball team, and that baseball team was going to go to the United States, not to leave Cuba, but to do a diplomatic, all of that ended after, the Obama was president. And why can't we have that kind of relationship with Cuba? Because there's what a couple of generations angry Cubans who left years ago. I'm sorry, get over
Well,
it. Like
well, that,
we're
well,
living for a small pocket of Miami Cubans that
yeah.
Marco Rubio has some form of allegiance to. And I've been to Cuba and they are wonderful people. And what we're doing to them is disgusting and
Well,
shameful.
and for those of us, for those of you out there who may accuse us of being traitors for, saying that Cuba shouldn't have their fuel sources cut off, I remind you, the United States works with governments and countries all the time where we do not agree with how they do things in their own country. We work with China all the time. They are far worse as far as human rights is concerned than Cuba. We've normalized relations with Vietnam, even though we fought a brutal war over there for a decade. And uh, we had after
Saudi
World War
Arabia,
yeah,
we
we have normalized relationships with them. We are also, Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman worked with Stalin to end World War II. We don't have to like people to have a relationship with them or uh, even
some
to
rich
agree.
folks want their hotels in,
Yeah.
in
Or
their
agree with them, And so I don't think, this idea that, oh, we're going to work with a communist regime. Well, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time.
yeah,
It would not be the first time. And, they only seem to care about repressive governments again, when it fits a narrative that they can do. They say nothing about Viktor Orban or Vladimir Putin. Actually,
no.
figures on the right extol them. They love them. Tucker Carlson went over there a few years ago and said how wonderful Russia was and how great things were. And so, you know, spare me the bullshit about, oh, we're endorsing a communist regime and all this other stuff. You guys are
And we see
extolling
what
and praising fascists.
I met a Hungarian when I was in Portugal, who supported Orban and his point of like their point of view on in regards to like certain human issues like as far as gay and lesbian rights like was I was atrocious. And so like these are the types of leaders that they support, but you can't support Cuba. Uh and by the way, Cuba has a great record on how they treat their gay and lesbian community over there. People don't know that because we don't see it. So, watch independent podcasts. There's a great one, Belly of the Beast, that does a lot of inside reporting from Cuba. And you know, uh, you know, voice to Nicole, like she's Cuban, she should be helping her people. But she's not going to do that.
She will,
But fight for Cuba.
yeah,
I'm feeling for them. I loved that country when I was over there. Great people, great culture, and they don't deserve what we're doing to them right now.
absolutely not. So, but on that note, this is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
And I'm Nancy Richards. See
We'll
you
see you next
next
week.
week.